Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Cladocast, episode 49. Stop your messing, it's time for Essen. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm John Cage.
And I'm a very exasperated Andy Lewis.
I thought that was a great tagline.
Yeah.
You would.
Because I've got excellent taste, clearly. Right, let's move swiftly on.
Dad joke Tudor, they call him.
Well, I wanted to say it in the kind of like Hicks from Aliens, stop your grinning and drop your linen.
You see, that's good, yeah. But he is a professional actor, Steve.
I'm a professional something.
Are you?
Yes.
Professional
anyway,
board game reviewer. Haha.
No, I'm not even that.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just some random bloke who records shite on the internet. So, this is our Essen preview episode. It is that time of year again where the absolutely stonkingly massive board game convention in Essen, Germany occurs. And according to Board Game Geek, over 1,000 board games will be released to the general public.
Oh, yeah. Das ist gut.
Show, for sale or for demo at Essen Spiel. None of us three are going.
Nope.
Again.
Obviously.
None of us can afford it. Yeah.
And I might be moving house.
Yeah. Which doesn't stop us from the rampant speculation of trying to work out which board games that are coming out might be good, might not be good, or generally what's excited us, basically.
Yes.
As far as board games are concerned.
Yes.
Hopefully only that.
So I thought we'd start by having a look at what we said we were interested in last year. Now, last year's episode, we did our kind of 3x3 thing where each of us picked 3 games we're interested in. Mm-hmm. But we also had a couple of games that were coming out of Essen that we had a chance to review before the last episode. And it's quite interesting to see which of these games we've still played, which we still own, and which ones we're actually still waiting to be delivered.
Yeah.
Good point, because there's a few we have been disappointed on so far.
First game we talked about on the last Essen episode was Clans of Caledonia, which we nicknamed Terraforming Scotland, which was a game about basically setting up farms and dairies and distilleries and such like to export goods. And we kind of liked it, but not a lot, was I think the general gist of it, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was well made, mechanically sound. It worked. It didn't take too long either. I think we got through in about just over an hour, didn't we, the two of us? And then we played with Sid and got through in about an hour and a half, and he beat us because we're terrible. But it just didn't really set our pants on fire.
I seem to remember you guys saying, I still not played it, by the way, but I seem to remember you guys saying that the theme just didn't tie to the mechanics at all.
Basically, yeah, that was my complaint.
Which I think is a concern because there's a few games that we're going to be talking about lately which Andy has picked, which I think have also got the same problem.
Well, we'll find out, won't we?
More on that later.
Yes. Yes. A chilling vision of things to come.
The thing is, I mean, Clans of Caledonia did produce a bit of a buzz at the time. A lot of people started playing it, so yes, very, very good. But I haven't heard much about it since.
I've got to admit, there was like kind of a peak for about 2 months, and then you're right, it seemed to like drop off then, didn't it?
Yeah. I said, I mean, it wasn't a bad game. If somebody put it in front of me and said, play this, Andy, I would be more than happy to. It's just not something I would want to own. I think just because it's probably just too similar to a few other things I've got, it doesn't really sort of stand out of its own accord. And just coming back to what John mentioned, that the link between mechanics and theme, to me, it suffered kind of almost from Upon a Fable syndrome, that you could just reskin it with something completely different and it really wouldn't change the mechanics of the game, which I know is par for the course for Euros, but to me that seemed to be a little bit of a weakness of it.
I think we have to rename that syndrome. Just because I think we're the only one of 5 people who actually played Upon a Fable, so it's one of those references that not many people are going to get.
Okay.
I can't think of another popular game which really does it, unless we call
Clans of Caledonia syndrome. Yeah, it's not the only game that does it, though. There's loads and loads. I mean, it is difficult for a Euro to do this sort of thing, though. But it's not impossible. There are plenty of Euros out there that do make nice links. So, yeah. But, yeah, and it wasn't a game that we really went nuts for.
One game we did go nuts for, though, at the time, was Monsterlands, but unfortunately, it still hasn't come out.
No, it is actually, because I backed it, I was actually true to my word. You held me down, almost physically, and said to both of these two games, would you back them, Andy? And my answer was no to Clans, but yes to Monsterlands. And I think possibly during the same podcast, I did actually back it. But it is currently in distribution. It's on its way, so it should be with us in the next couple of weeks. But no, it's not here yet.
Question is then, how many games can we get Andy to back by the end of this episode?
Well, you'll find out.
Challenge accepted.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll just limber up a bit.
It's just become a new sport. Andy beating.
Oh, that's already a sport.
That's true. And you two played... Actually, we should probably talk about it, Monsterlands a bit more, and it's just going, yes, we played it.
Well, just briefly, because I don't want to spend too much time talking about what we talked about last year, but
No.
I think it's an interesting one because I think we really liked this last year, and it will be at Essen. So we're doing a 2018 Essen preview. It will be there this year as well. And with any luck, you'll be able to buy it this year.
I noticed that on the list of board games at Essen, there's a number of expansions, in fact, for Monsterlands. Like the heavy guns or something like that.
Ooh.
It looked like.
Hello.
So another game that we were quite excited about at the time was the Inbetween. I say I was definitely very excited about it.
Now, you've managed to play this since, haven't you?
I have.
Because at the time of doing the podcast last time, I don't think we'd played it. I think we just received it.
Maybe.
So yes, that was really nice, and I think that's going to be that. Well, it's going to be for sale at the Board and Dice stand again. But I think we both rather enjoyed it. So I know Amanda really enjoyed this game.
Yeah, I would definitely buy this.
Really nice little two-player game where it's like a tug of war, where it's like Stranger Things card game is one way to think of it.
Yeah.
Where you're playing these multi-use cards, and what you're trying to do is pull the world into either the real dimension or the shadow dimension, and it's really quite clever.
Yeah, I really like the fact that you're constantly kind of shuffling it towards making the counter land on your card so that you can do some cool stuff, or reversing it before it gets to the other player's card and that sort of thing. As you say, it's a lot of toing and throwing. It's good fun.
So they were kind of we'd played them at the time, and then we all picked 3 games. So I think most of the games we'd picked, I've had a look, and 7 of the 9 games we picked have come out since, which means 2 of the games we picked are still not available to play, even though we have played one of them. So the 2 which have not yet come out, one of them which is Dice Hospital.
Yep.
Yes.
Which might be at Essen this year, might not.
Should be, I would have thought. It's pretty much finished production.
No, have you not heard the news?
No.
As of a few days ago, Dice Hospital was still stuck in customs.
Oh dear.
Well, yes.
So it was kind of down to the wire whether it was going to make it to Essen on time. And the other game, which came out, which was at Essen but hasn't come out yet, which was Nemesis, which we have all played.
Yep.
And we weren't quite sure about it, so me and Andy both dropped our pledge down to £1. And then...
Yes, I kind of revisited and reassessed the predicament for Nemesis, so went from a single £1 to a all-in.
I'll see your standard backing, John, and I'll raise you.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, if you go big or go home, boys.
Well, yeah. Well, you might be out of a home if you carry on backing games all in.
I'll just live in all of this lovely cardboard. It's fine. The rain won't get through that. It's like plasticized. It'll be fine.
Just throw a tarp over the top.
Yeah, there you go. A kind of high-class tramp home. At least they won't be stuck for entertainment.
True. Very good point.
So at least 2 of us will actually be getting this game then, and I might be getting this game. I'm not entirely sure at the moment.
Ooh.
So, which of the games that we were talking about have we not played or have disappointed us?
Well, I had actually forgotten about most of these, but Wasteland Delivery Service isn't out yet.
That's been out for a year.
Has been out.
Yeah.
Wasteland Delivery Service I don't own yet, but it is quite expensive. I was thinking a different one. So I haven't played that since. Professor Evil and the Citadel of Time. I still think that sounds interesting, but I haven't bought it and I haven't played it since. And the other one that I thought sounded interesting was Tao Long, which I still think sounds interesting, but I haven't played it, nor have I bought it.
Wow.
There you go.
Nothing like dedication, is there?
So, as a foreword for the rest of this episode, you can all quite safely ignore John's predictions for the rest of this episode.
I still maintain my opinions that they are almost certainly good games. I just haven't gotten around to doing anything about it yet.
Good
So
grief.
don't just chuck my opinions away willy-nilly. They're still good
Why not?
opinions.
We usually do.
Ugh.
I have not fared much better, I must admit, Mr. Cage. So, we've already mentioned one of the games of my 3 picks, which was Nemesis, which we have all played. We managed to get a prototype copy. And we are, as we just said, it's on order. It will arrive soon. So, that's safe. It's in the bank, but in the year since last Essen, it hasn't been released. The other one I picked, which was my Steve's novelty Essen game of 2017, was Coaster Park, which is the game where you build a roller coaster and roll a marble down it.
Yep.
I have not played that game at all, and I have not purchased that game, and I've heard nothing but bad reviews about that game since about a week after Essen last year.
Well done.
So, so that's a stinker. But my last one was the Expanse board game. And me and Mr. Cage have indeed actually played that game.
We have.
Was it any good? Because it looked really dull.
It was good, but Steve cheats.
Did not cheat.
And by cheat, I mean he knows all the rules and didn't reveal some of them until it became painfully obvious that there was a problem with them.
Which one did I get wrong?
No, you didn't get any rules wrong. There were just a few things that if you didn't know the impact of them meant that they were absolutely devastating when it cropped up.
Yes, I got to admit, to be fair, and I hold my hand up, I didn't fully understand the rules before we started, and it was to do with the scoring. So I didn't quite realise just how much the scoring ramped up as the game goes on. So scoring happens a set amount of times in the game, and players can choose when scoring happens by activating certain cards.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite realise that it goes from like 1 point for doing something to like 8 points in the final round. So getting things all lined up at the very end of the game is very, very important. And I didn't let on that I twigged this, and so scored absolutely stonkingly massive amounts of points in the final 3 scoring rounds.
Yeah, Steve did well.
So you cheated?
No, cheating's too strong a word.
No.
He just was aware of some pretty... Like, once you played the game once, you'd know these strategies. You'd know that these things were things that you definitely should do if you're to stand any kind of chance at scoring decent points. And so it was just an omission, really. It's an excuse to make us play the game again. I think that's what was really going on there.
Yeah, that was it, yeah.
I
said
see.
it looks a bit boring because it is cubes and a couple of cardboard discs.
Right.
And they've used stills from the TV programme, which I always think is not the most attractive thing on cards. I always think artwork looks better. But I absolutely loved this game. It is, if you can think of like a war game, like the ones like where someone's made a war game about, German tanks crossing the Rhine or whatever, and it's like historically accurate, but it's all little cardboard tokens and cubes. It's that kind of game, but it's set in the Expanse story, and there's some really clever ideas in it. Like you have a row of cards to pick from, and you've got to be really careful about which card you pick, because activating that ability will give everyone else abilities. So sometimes you want to get a card to get out of the way, which means that you don't do anything, but it also stops your opponents from doing anything.
Yeah.
Really, really crunchy decisions in there every round. I think you will like it, Andy.
It hurt my head.
It sounds like the sort of thing that Phalanx should release, but
it's in that kind of Phalanx kind of category, yeah.
Okay, cool.
More
I probably
kind of
will
the
like it then.
GMT coin series kind of game without the asymmetry, but yeah, I think you will like it.
Excellent. That sounds good.
Well, you seem to have done a lot better, Mr. Lewis.
I usually do. You see, it's because of my exquisite taste.
No, it's just the scattergun approach that if you
It is
throw
not.
money at enough board games...
Most of what I've bought or backed has not been a turd. There have been the occasional flushable, but... So the first one I went for was Charterstone, which nearly actually finished the full campaign of 6 players, so we've got one more game to play. So that's been interesting. I won't say too much more about my opinion of the game until we finish the campaign, and then Steve and I can go hog wild. Because I think you finished it, haven't you, Steve, with Amanda?
I've got one game left to play,
Right,
but
okay.
I don't want to record a review until I've played that game, but I doubt there's going to be any surprises. To be fair, whoever plays it first can basically say, is there any surprises? And then from there we can decide whether we want to carry on.
Yeah, fair enough. It's probably going to be me, because I'm probably booked in to play that next week before I move house, but we shall see. So yes, Charterstone generally pretty good, but that's all I'm going to say. And Dice Hospital we mentioned, and also I went for Photosynthesis, which has ended up as and I hate myself for using this is just another Steve dad joke, a tree for tree.
Yeah,
you see.
All three members of Polyhedron Claddagh now own that game, and that's a very small collection and an honour. It should be a badge on the front of that. It should, the Dice Tower badge should be on there, and the Polyhedron Claddagh 3 for 3 should be on
Definitely.
there.
It is a very, very elite club.
that game is probably one of the ones that I've played most this year, I reckon.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I probably played it at least twice.
To be fair, I played it quite a lot as well. It's a good gateway game because it isn't particularly difficult to learn, and it rattles on relatively quickly and doesn't take much more than about an hour. So it's strategic. It's not very dice based. It's not dice based at all. Obviously, there's not a huge amount. In fact, there's no luck in it. It's all strategy. So, which is great, and it's pretty, and it's not expensive. It's only about £30 you can pick it up for. So it kind of ticks all the boxes, really.
Indeed.
Cool. That was our predictions for last year and how well we've done. So from there, you can use us as a gauge of how good or bad our tastes are.
Dreadful.
Yeah. And how good or bad our ability is at predicting.
Dreadful.
So we have picked 3 games each that we're going to talk about. And we're going to have some. I think we're going to have some honourable mentions because we actually struggled to pick 3 games each. And I got to admit, when I first started looking at this list, I was struggling to pick 1 game, and now I've got 4 games on my shortlist, which I need to remove.
You've done really badly at picking 3 games each because you two have picked 4 each.
I only picked 4 because Steve had picked 4. And like, if he's going to get on the action, I'm not going to get stuck with just 3.
So since you've picked 3, Andy, go for your first choice then.
My first choice, well, I'm going to go for the one that is of no surprise to anyone, really. We've talked about it briefly before anyway, but this is Teotihuacan from NSKN Games. Got it demoed to us at Expo this year, so go and listen to our Expo episode to hear what we actually think of it. All I'm going to say is that we did enjoy it. It's a huge game. There's a lot of buzz about it at the moment. It's a spiritual successor to Tzolk'in, designed by the same guy, and you can definitely tell there are similar mechanics in there, although not the same. It's a rondel. Nice chap.
You see, you say Steve is the dad's jokes guy, but pot kettle.
Hey, as you say, if he's getting it, if he's in on that action, I'm getting in on it as well.
Slippery slope.
Monkey see, monkey do, and all that. And we are nothing but 3 monkeys with microphones. I suppose the crowning glory in Teotihuacan is the fact that you build a pyramid in the middle of the board. It's unlikely you'll actually complete the pyramid, although hopefully mostly because you'll get better at the game and eventually finish it rather than be dog shit like we were and get maybe the first layer of it built when we played it. But it does look fantastic.
We did only play a third of the game, though.
That is true, yes. I don't think it would have made much difference. But it's got a lot of talk about it. It seems to be very popular. We got a lot of positive press from at Expo as well, and I have already pre-ordered it. So there we go. That's one. That's basically done your job for you, boys. Is Andy going to buy this game? Yes.
It's not the kind of game I would normally go for, but based on our playthrough at Expo this year, I got to admit, I can't disagree with a single thing you said there. The dice use of the rondel was really nice, so it had that kind of euphoria idea that your dice advance and go to different faces, which then can do different things depending on the numbers. You have this nice little rondel where you're going around the board, so it's as we said, it's not worker placement, so if you've not played it before, it depends on where other people are on the board, allows you to maybe skip over them or use their dice. It's that brain crunchy kind of I've got 400 things to consider that you had with sulking. But when we were talking about Hands of Caledonia before, that whole idea of like theme, the theme isn't strong with this one, but it's enough to hold it together, I think.
Yes.
If you didn't have that pyramid in the middle of the board, I would be considered maybe not. But there's just enough there to bind this game as a whole.
Yes, I would agree with that. I mean, having the rondel, it's all pretty pictures. It's all very Mayan, again, a bit like Tzolk'in. But yeah, without the pyramid, I think the link would be a lot weaker. Not unpresent, but definitely weaker, you're right.
So yes, that is Teotihuacan from NSKN Games, or Teotihuacan, as we tend to call it.
Because we're illiterate monkeys.
Yeah. Mr. Cage.
So I've done what I did last year, I realised, and that's come to the table late, discovered that you guys already picked the ones that I would have normally picked, and have to have gone down the list and find some random stuff that you guys wouldn't have found.
I absolutely refuse to believe you'd have picked Teotihuacan or Prehistory.
Well, we'll never know, will we?
I refuse to believe.
Anyway, I didn't. The first one on my list was something called Railroad Inc., which looks like it caught my attention because most of the games that we play involve rolling dice, playing cards, doing something on a board, that kind of thing, putting people down. This is unusual in that I don't own a game that has roll and write mechanics, which I thought sounded intriguing.
What are roll and write mechanics? Because I've heard them recently, but I have no idea what they are.
Yahtzee.
Oh.
Yes, but...
No, before John goes any further, I will say, but the roll and write usually means you roll some dice and you have to fill in some specific area of some scoreboard you own with those numbers and write them down. So Yahtzee is the kind of prime example of what roll and write is, because you're rolling dice and then choosing which score you want to pick off that list.
Right.
But this particular game is a little bit different. Because rather than just scoring these things down, trying to score multiples of a certain dice face or something along those lines, in this one you are trying to connect a sort of railroad, and it's not just railroads; it's actually also roads. So Rails and Road Inc. would be a more accurate name for the game, but maybe not as catchy. Essentially, you've got a little board with loads of squares on it. And there are various exits on this board, and you've got to join as many of those exits together with your railroad. So you roll a dice, everyone then has to use the faces of those dice. So they'll be like, here's a picture of a straight railroad, here's a railroad that meets a regular road, like a station basically, or here's like a T-piece, that sort of thing. You've got to use these things by like drawing them on your little map. And you take it in turns rolling these dice, and every time someone rolls a dice, you add those to your board. So that's
okay.
Yeah, so you're basically trying to make the best of things, but you're doing it by drawing on a little map rather than trying to score things. So it's sort of almost like a tile placement on top of the kind of Yahtzee style of things. That's my take on it anyway.
Just sort of looking at it now, just got it up on BGG. The dice look interesting. So I see what you mean about the combinations of rails and roads and all that sort of jazz. And then it reminds me of, is it Pipeline? Yes. Remember that game from years ago? You had like loads of pipes going around. Obviously, you don't design the pipeline at the time, but by the time you finish drawing it, I guess that's kind of the idea as well, to try and make it as long as possible.
Do you mean Pipe Dream?
Yes! That's the one.
Yes. Yeah, okay. Yeah, similar sort of idea, I suppose. So the more exits that you've got connected at the end of the game, the more points you get, essentially. But apparently, I've never played it, but from the bits that I've read, when you do play it, there's an awful lot of fairly entertaining cursing when other people roll their dice and the wrong things come up, because you don't get a choice as to whether or not you draw these things down. It's just your choice of where you put them, which I think would be good fun.
This game has actually got quite a lot of buzz. I've seen a couple of reviews of this, and a lot of the people who've played it say it's really, really good. And it's available in 4 flavours.
Is it 4? I thought it was 2. The red and the blue.
No, it's red, blue, green, and
strawberry.
I mean, it's 3. Well, it's just red, green, and blue, but apparently there's themed. So one's got rivers and lakes in, one's got volcanoes and mountains in, and one's got forests in.
Meteors and lava, things. I think, is the red one.
That's it. All right. So there's things you have to build around.
Yeah.
based on the set you've got, and you can mix and match them or put them all together and make like one giant 12-player version of the game.
Yeah,
Ooh,
exactly.
Okay. Would you write on an A3 piece of paper or something?
I think it's still writing on the same piece of paper. It's just, yeah. Anyway, yeah, there are more dice and more things going on in the game.
Okay,
so
interesting.
Yeah. So I thought that sounded interesting. Let's see if I'll have bought it in a year's time.
I'm going to vote no, but we'll see.
I think if it's out, I think there's a reasonable chance I will have got this one, actually.
I think this is my top tip for this is the one out of John's list he's going to have bought. Because I think there's one on his list I think you're going to buy, Andy.
What?
Yeah, I think you'll be right.
There might even be two. That was by the way, was Railroad Inc.
What about you then, Tudor? What are you...
My first pick, and the one I was actually thinking of not mentioning this one because of a couple of reasons. I thought one of them was because John is probably looking forward to this one as well. And the other reason, because I've got a copy and it turned up today.
So I'm going to reiterate what I said earlier, Steve. What are you doing on Friday?
And this is Monolith Arena from Portal Games.
Ding!
So the first way of describing this game is it is an updated version of Hiroshima Hex, which is a game which has been out for a good 10 years or so now, and is
excellent.
One of my favourite board games.
Yep.
I would say as well, I've had a scan through the rule book. I've not had a chance to to look into much detail, and the basic version of this game is almost exactly the same as Hiroshima Hex.
Okay.
But with different themes and different units.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's this concept of the monoliths, which I haven't read the rules for yet, which are these little templates which stack.
Ooh.
So you're actually allowed to put units on top of each other, and you have this monolith apparently that moves around the board. I haven't got to there yet, but anything that adds a twist to Hiroshima Hex is something I'm interested in.
Yep, seconded.
The rest of it is your typical shields, nets, making sure that you've got everything in place, and then hitting that battle token at the right time.
Nice.
So I'm really looking forward to putting this to look at this more detail. We will have a review of this probably in the next episode.
Excellent. Is this presumably this is off the shelf, not a Kickstarter?
Yes, because Portal Games don't do Kickstarters.
Excellent.
So it's retail. I believe it because of the timing. It will be available to buy at Essen.
There we go.
And if it succeeds, I can imagine plenty of expansions coming out for this game because Hiroshima Hex had plenty of different factions and add-ons you could buy for it as well.
Definitely.
So expect something similar. So that's Monolith Arena from Portal Games.
Excellent. Well, is it my go again? Good Lord, that's come round quick. The second one on my list is another game I've actually backed on Kickstarter, but hasn't turned up yet, although I'm reliably informed it is actually on its way. And that is Prehistory. So this is a game by A Games of Ave Roma and Sakura fame, which I have backed both of in the past. Really loved Ave Roma. It broke Steve and the rest of our Worcester gaming group with the people we played. We all felt after like we'd been assaulted. It was complicated. But once you play it again, it's all right, this, than what we were worried about. But Prehistory is by the same designer again, so the reason I backed it was basically the blurb on the Kickstarter was, it's by the same designer and it's a very heavy euro. Right, sold. So, backing that right now. The premise of Prehistory is that you are a prehistoric tribe of Neanderthals, and there isn't enough food to go round. So you have to wander around, migrate, find food, move on, survive, try to find all of these sort of valuable resources. So you try to manage your food and resources. It's a bit of sort of resource management game, moving around, facing peril, enemies, tigers, all that sort of stuff that the early man did, fishing, hunting, drawing on walls. And the idea is that you advance your, I'm going to say technology, but you make the most progress. So presumably you get better art, better weapons, all that sort of stuff. And also to have what it's been dubbed the most wealth. So whether there's money in the game or not, I don't know. But however wealth is managed and money, because I think Prehistory, that predates money, surely. So we'll see how that works. I haven't played it.
Notches in a stick. Pebbles.
Pebbles, yes.
Yeah.
Or number of caves. Maybe you're going to be becoming a property mogul back in the day.
I think territory mogul is probably more accurate, but yes.
Definitely.
Prehistoric version of Phil and Kirsty.
Oh, no, that would be quite funny. God, the sexual tension they have on screen is just immense, isn't it? It's very, very funny.
And that Phil looks horny and
she's not having
Kirsty
none of
looks
it.
tense.
Yeah. Yes, pretty much. I saw him in Bristol, actually, when I used to work down there. They were filming on one of the streets. So, of course, there's a few people sort of walking past on camera. Hi!
Was one of them you?
It wasn't me. I dutifully ignored him. He looked quite grumpy. But there's one claim to fame. But yeah, the idea of prehistory is that there's an interesting sort of dual marker mechanic. So you can either use the marker for an action or you can use it as a resource. So I'm not quite sure exactly how that will work, but I'm sure once the game turns up and I've had a couple of goes, I'll be able to explain it in great detail, much to the consternation of these two. See,
I'm going to admit, I did start watching a video of this today, so I've tried to mind the homework and like learn about as much of the games you guys are mentioning as possible. And as soon as I didn't know this was A games, but as soon as somebody's like sort of pitched the board, I went, hang on, that's Harvey Roma with stone caveman paintings, isn't it?
That's pretty much what I thought when I first saw it. That'll do.
I did notice there was quite an interesting thing to do with resources. Your resources on a dial. So you get, I think it's 5 different resources, and you turn this dial every turn, so your resources change each round, but you can predict it.
Yes.
Which looked pretty cool. Hopefully it's not as complicated as Ave Roma, because, well, only brain surgery is less complicated than that game.
It's fine. Your mind
Writing
is
software
clearly
is
inferior. It's not that complicated. The thing is, we haven't actually played the advanced version of Ave Roma either.
Oh my!
Or indeed,
There's a
any
level
of it.
above. There's remember on the cards we played, there was these little sort of white symbols, and there's a number of them. Yeah, we ignored those the first time we played, but you can put them together to form sets of these things, and they do additional things. It's great. And then there's the 5 expansions.
I ignored half of what was on that card and just thought, what can I actually play?
Yep, pretty much. It's what happened when we played it in Worcester too.
John is waving a can of Tiny Rebel Stay Puft Marshmallow Porter at me.
Oh, God, this stuff is amazing.
Oh, it really is. Yes, you should go to Head of Steam in Birmingham where they serve it, and you get this massive, great toasted marshmallow sat on the top of it. Oh, it's divine.
I agree. I should do that.
Isn't it also about 10%?
No,
it's
no, the normal stuff isn't.
It's nice and light. It's only 5.2.
Oh, entry level.
This isn't the Imperial Stout version. This is just the.
I think it was
porter.
the Imperial version I had.
No, this is a weekday drink
Yeah.
rather than an end of weekend kind of drink. As
Nice.
in, it will end your weekend.
However, you can drink this late after John's birthday this week. I'll never know.
Oof. I had a
It
couple
was
of pints
messy.
last night. Oh god, that was a late night. That was 3 in the morning by the time I got to bed. After
Something like
a combination of beer, red wine, a lot of rum,
Oh, that rum's good.
and a whiskey as well. It was good rum actually. I wasn't a rum fan until I had some of that. I was like, oh, yeah, I could get into this.
Rum bullion. It's like spiced rum. It's particularly good.
It was nice, yes. I could have had another, but I'm glad I didn't.
I definitely regretted having another, and the whiskey, and the beer, and the wine.
Oof. Did everything wrong that night. Although weirdly, my head didn't hurt the following day much. I had a couple of ibuprofen, that sorted it out, but I just felt just dead. I'm too old for this shit now.
It's a shame I can't smoothly link this into a talk of another board game.
Not unless it's Beer Empire, no.
No.
Well, I don't know. Escape Tales The Awakening. We all eventually had an awakening on Sunday, even if it was in the middle of the
Actually,
afternoon.
Yes. No, that's perfect, Mr. Lewis.
Yes, I know.
So, waking up on Sunday morning after drinking beer, red wine, whiskey, and then rum felt like trying to escape from a demonic hell dimension.
is the ropiest link I've ever heard.
Which is exactly what you're trying to do in Escape Tales: The Awakening.
Yeah, very smooth. Very original as well. I'm surprised no one else came up with that link, Steve.
Good grief.
This is from our good crazy friends at Board and Dice, and this is an escape room style game.
Ooh.
Now, I've played an early demo of this because they had a demo of this at UK Games Expo, and I managed to get a play in of it. It's supposedly unique, but I'd have to play it 2 or 3 times to actually prove this, in that most escape room games tend to have one way out. So, see, if you play like the unlock games or the exit games, you've got to go from A to B to C to D to E, and off you go. Mm-hmm. In this game, in theory, you can go multiple different routes to get out of the escape room.
Ooh.
And so you can effectively play this game several times and get different results every time you play.
Interesting.
And I don't know whether there's going to be multiple scenarios, but the scenario that was available in the demo version was I think it's your daughter is in a coma, and you're performing a ritual to get into her head while she's in the coma to try and wake her up. Hence why it's called The Awakening.
So I see what they've done there.
What's really quite clever is you explore like areas of like a grid. If you imagine like a point and click adventure, you get like this little screen of what you can see, where you get a card of what you can see with different locations on it.
Right.
And because you're performing the ritual in front of a mirror, you get the reflection as the other card. And as you go for different parts of the dimension, like only one of the 2 cards will change.
Oh, okay.
Depending on what you've done.
Interesting.
And then you've got a limited amount of time to do things. So as you explore, you put tokens down on another grid which says which grid sections you have explored. And if you run out of tokens, you've got to take this oh crap card would be the best way to describe it. You randomly draw a card from the deck and it will give you more tokens so you can carry on playing, but will also have a really negative effect on the rest of the game and will affect the story at the end.
Ooh, okay. That sounds interesting.
It's very much story driven, so unlike something like Unlock or Exit, which they're really like a typical escape room. It's just a puzzle. It's like Crystal Maze kind of thing. This is a much more like a choose your own adventure, a fighting fantasy kind of thing. There is a story that runs through it, and you are trying to get clues as to how to do things, and you're making choices as well. So it's going to have an app with it as well, where you'll enter in the choices you've made, and which will lead you down different paths.
Interesting. Does that mean they can sort of evolve it over time as well?
I assume so, yeah.
Okay.
But I know I was speaking to the Board and Dice guys at Tabletop Gaming Live a few weeks back, and they were saying that they've overhauled it since this original version. They said they wrote the script for this original test version that they had out, and now they've got professional writers in to improve the story, and they've spent a lot of time working on the app to improve how that works. So, really looking forward to what this can do.
Excellent.
Pretty cool.
So that's Escape Tales: The Awakening.
So that sounds like a silky smooth kind of game.
Not again.
Which smoothly leads me into the next game I picked, which is called Silk.
As smooth as silk, mate. Yeah, that's clever, that. Yeah. Good God.
I can see Steve wants to high-five me. Yes, so Silk is a game by a chap called Louis Renido, I think it's Renido, published by De Vere Games, and it's a kind of area control, area influence, dice rolling, worker placement-y kind of game. Andy? So I know, I can see you're scratching your head there, and you're looking in confusion why I might have picked a game like this, and there's one...
What I'm confused about is that it just sounds like they've taken every game mechanic possible and thrown them at a wall to see what sticks. But please elaborate.
So the thing that enticed me this game is it was described as a bit of a gateway game into area control and worker placement systems. And I figured since I'm still trying to encourage myself to like worker placement systems, I'm on olive number 6 of 12 before I actually decide that I like these things. I thought this sounded like it could potentially be one of those games that maybe nudges me in that direction. So the gist of it is that essentially you are a silkworm farmer in the Acacia Mountains, because these things produce some of the most delicate and expensive silk in the world, but it's a pretty horrible and lonesome place to be a shepherd of giant silkworms.
This game sounds like it's not vegan friendly.
Well, I don't think you're eating them. You're just, mining their silk, essentially, or shepherding it, or however you want to pronounce it. But essentially, you're competing with other people over the desirable feeding grounds to try and get the best quality silk.
Okay.
So the person with the most silk points at the end of the game wins, and there's a bit of shuffling around trying to get your silkworms into the optimal spaces so they get the best grass available, and pushing other people's pieces into less desirable feeding grounds. So you're sort of rolling dice to determine which actions you're allowed to do in your turn, and then there's 6 types of actions like breeding more silkworms, moving shepherds, blah, 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 building fences. So kind of a lot like other similar kind of worker placement-y kind of games, but you've also got a board that you're shuffling things around on, hence the area control.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
I've got to admit, I tried again to look up some stuff on this, and at first I saw the artwork and kind of went, okay, I'm not quite sure what this could be, because the artwork is a bit weird.
It looks quite basic, doesn't it?
Well, these silkworms look a bit weird.
Oh, yeah.
They do not look like real silkworms. They look like the size of a sheep.
Yeah. And they've got like multiple eyes going all the way back to like 2/3 of the way down their back.
Yeah.
It's more like a shog-off.
Yeah, they do look more like a little tiny cute shog-off.
Yep.
But once I started reading the description of how this game works, I was kind of like, this actually sounds rather interesting, because it seemed to tick a few boxes. It seemed to be the lighter end of the worker placement kind of side to us, but it was all about basically being a dick and trying to force other people's silkworms into other areas. And then there's like a big bad wolf you can bring in, which eats the silkworms.
Yeah, that was the only bit. When I was looking at the rules and things, I couldn't find... There's a mention of the fearsome ukami, which is something bad.
Ukami!
But I couldn't find any reference to it, and all the other bits of information, the snippets I did find. But I assume that's basically the big bad wolf you mentioned.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, the other thing I can't work out as well, according to the artwork, it's got like 3 dots above the eye of silk. So that make it like an uber umlaut.
Silkworm.
So it's actually like silkworm.
There you go, you see, hence my smooth lead into the topic.
Yes.
So, yeah,
Well,
I thought it looked interesting.
Certainly sounds interesting. I don't know about the idea of rolling dice to select actions, but...
I think that just gives you the options for the actions. So it's like pulling a card to say you've got these actions that you can do.
Yeah, totally.
I think it's something to do as well, isn't it? The dice are rolled and everyone has to take those actions. So it's not just a case of you roll the dice and only you have to take those actions. I think that
makes more sense.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite as nasty as that.
Yeah.
So you actually, everyone is limited in the same way, if that makes sense.
Okay. That's all right. That would make sense, because otherwise you just kept rolling badly. You just get the same action every time. You just go, well, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, okay. That might be interesting. Is this the one you think I might end up getting from John's list then?
No.
No?
No,
maybe
it's not.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. I sit here with bated breath. Or was that bad breath? One of the two.
So that's Silk, 2 to 4 players, 45 minutes, ages 10 plus. I think it looks really interesting.
10 plus? Ooh. So it's a toy.
Apparently.
Interesting.
So, Andy, you say you're waiting there with bad breath. Is that because you've been drinking too much tea?
Oh, God. I honestly, if I could reach into the screen and slap you, I would. No. Actually, yes. I've just finished a nice cup of decaf. Not Ceylon, though. It was a mixture of...
We're going to lose listeners over this episode. You realise that?
They've probably turned off already. With 3 bad dad jokes already, the 4th is just enough to drive them away. Yes, so my third of 3 is going to be Ceylon. And unsurprisingly, it is all about tea in Ceylon. the idea being behind the game is that in the 19th century, that what was then the area called Ceylon, which is now Sri Lanka, there was a lot of coffee, but bad things happened to the coffee plantations, and tea was introduced instead. So the idea here is that you own a tea plantation, and you build different teas, sell it around the world. So it's probably along the lines of things like, possibly, not unlike Clans of Caledonia, having said that we weren't that interested in it, but also with probably elements of things like brass that you're selling cotton and stuff to other industries. Yes.
Some jokes die hard.
Yes, or not at all. So you've got to get favour the councillors, the district, develop technology. So it sounds like, obviously I've not played it, I've not even read the rules for it yet, there's elements of games like Agra, Brass, Clans of Caledonia, all of these things coming together. And it also looks very, very pretty.
It does look pretty, I'll give you that.
Yes.
I watched the Man vs. Meeple preview of this, and I think Brass is a very good analogy, actually. Because it was all about using... The cards gave you actions. So you select an action based on the cards in your hand, and you put that down on the table, and it goes in the middle of the table, and then other players have the other actions on that card to choose from. So it's got that Martin Wallace style multiple use cards, but it's also got that thing we mentioned a little bit earlier with like the Expanse, where the action you pick is going to give other players around the table different actions.
So it's a bit like TI3 in that sense then.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's in that there's essentially a card with two actions on. You do the top one, and everyone else does the other one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there similar mechanics where you can essentially deny everyone, but also yourself, just to prevent other people activating?
You were always choosing a card from your hand to do the action, I think.
Right, okay.
So I think you're always choosing action, but then allowing other people to take that action based on it. And I've got to admit, the rough explanation of the mechanics and how you're growing tea and then drying it out and then shipping it and things like that, and how activating certain actions means you have access to other players' tea, but they get points if you use it. There was a lot of things that were making me think. Brass.
Yeah.
Brass.
And with the other advantage that, unlike Brass, which looks dreary and coal powered and everyone's got lung cancer from the coal dust in the air, this was all bright and colourful and cheerful and perky, like you would be after a nice cup of tea.
Yes.
Speaking about how dull and dark Brass looks, did you see this week that the original proposed artwork for the Brass Birmingham?
I did, yeah. Oh God, it was the I don't know if you've seen the Brass Birmingham image, John, but the box art it's like a white box with.
I've seen the current one, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so you know what that looks like. Well, the original, the proposed one, kind of looks like that, but it's almost like there's an extra bit at the bottom where essentially it's the guy from from Brass Lancashire who's rich and got a big top hat on and holding this lovely brass statue. It's essentially a little steam engine affair. It's essentially passed out on the street, having basically drunk himself to death. There's a beer bottle or a bottle of something kind of lying on the floor next to him, and he's kind of face down in a puddle with as kind of a woman, the sort of reflection in the puddle of a woman carrying a big bag of cotton. The suggestion that stuck in my mind when somebody said this was somebody should have made that puddle vomit instead. And it would have been modern day Birmingham instead.
So basically, they probably put it through some market research and decided maybe that was a step too far.
Apparently, it was considered too dark for some reason.
Funny that.
But so yeah, I think a lot of people probably wouldn't have got it, myself included. Actually, I'll be looking and going, I mean, it's kind of fun, but wow.
Yeah, it wasn't obvious to me it was the same guy straight away, and it's supposed to be he's passed out drunk, but he does look dead. And you're like, I don't remember murder being in the Brass games.
No, not at all. Not unless you get hit by a train.
So yeah, I'm actually quite looking forward to this Ceylon. This one passed me by. Well,
aren't you lucky you've got me to help you out?
I am.
You are.
I am lucky. I'm very lucky indeed.
Yeah. Yeah, the picture of your face just emanates so fortunate.
Yeah, I'm blessed. Speaking of Martin Wallace's multi-use cards, the last game on my list that I'm really looking forward to, but I actually think might even be out by now. But
are you wild about it?
I am definitely wild about this game.
Get your coat cage, seriously.
And that is Wildlands from Martin Wallace and Osprey Games. And we had a look at this at Expo. And it is a skirmish game based around the use of cards. So all the actions you want to take are based on the cards in your hand. So much like Brass, where you have multi-use cards and they can be allowed to attack or they can be allowed to defend. You have to carefully use these cards to move your miniatures around the game and grab the loot and get out. So it's like a capture the flag kind of game. The interesting things here is players can interrupt your turn to play cards as well and do things. They can basically ambush you as you move through and hide.
Oh, interesting.
So this is a beautiful looking game. The board artwork is absolutely lovely.
It does look very cool.
The miniatures are very pretty. And they've already announced a couple of expansions. And I think one of the expansions allows you to play this game solo. So you can actually, or cooperative, I hope. And because one of the expansions is like an AI deck for one of the factions.
Ooh. Did you say that this is at Expo?
There was a demo version of this at Expo, yeah.
Right, okay. So I don't think I saw it.
It was a prototype version. It was on the Osprey stand. It was easy to miss stuff at Expo, I must admit.
It really was, yes. Yes. We spent, 3 days there, and I still missed stuff. It was just insane. Oh, well.
Well, imagine Essen, which we are talking about, is 4 times that size. So you miss a lot at Essen.
That's a lot of things. So,
imagine how poor Andy would be after it if he ever got there.
God. Yeah, the stupid thing is I don't see the point. Because, okay, you can go there and buy stuff, which is obviously the point. But it seems a long way to go to basically exceed your EasyJet limit.
I think the idea is you hire a shipping container.
I could do a road trip. That'd be good. There's a lot of room in the Beamer.
Apparently last year they were doing instead of like a shop and drop, a drop and ship.
Nice.
Where you could actually, you could drop your stuff off and get it shipped home.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
It wasn't a part of your luggage allowance. I gotta admit that when I did go, that was the most terrifying part because I basically took 2 suitcases and worked out I could like concertina them, so put one inside the other for there. Mm-hmm. And it basically contained like 3 t-shirts and 4 pairs of underpants. And a toothbrush. And on the way back, I filled up all of them and I'm at check-in going like... And then found out it was 10 kilograms under, so I could have fit in loads more.
Back in a minute. Hold the flight.
2 more copies of Gloomhaven.
Yeah.
I gotta admit though, when we are going round, if you're flying, there is this aspect where you're looking at games going, wait up, like you do the whole, it's a big box that.
Right.
How much that can I punch in the hotel overnight to reduce the weight? And how much smaller games can I put inside that box?
Oh God,
to reduce the shape size.
Does it come with metal coins? Right, that's right out. That's too heavy.
This is a game in itself.
Metal coins are carry on.
Yeah. Just put in my pocket. I'll spend them.
Just got to get through the metal detector at the airport with them.
Oh, good God.
Nice.
I'll have to do it at some point. Maybe next year.
I think it's worth going at least once. It's one of those things I think you've got to see. Because it's too expensive for us to go to something like Gen Con or Origins, which are the big ones in America. I think it is worth doing once if you've got that reference point of what it is, to be fair.
Okay.
So that was Wildlands from Osprey Games.
So, what's next in our pipeline? See, I can be just as shit as you two.
So the last game on my list, we did say 4. I was going to say Reef. I'm quite excited about that game, but we talked about it very recently, so I think we'll skip that for now and just leave it as something we're generally excited about.
I have a funny feeling, though, as well. Everyone knows about Reef at this point because it's the follow-up to Azul. I think everyone's going to be buying that game anyway.
Yeah. So following my standard trend of trying to find things that no one would normally go and look for, I discovered something called Pipeline. And there are very many other games also called Pipeline, but this is a new one from Ryan Courtney, published by Capstone. 2 to 4 players, 2 hours to play. And basically, it's like a route or network building tile placement game, is how it's described. Information about it is somewhat scant, but it looks quite pretty.
I saw your choice of this and saw one picture of it and went, all right then. So it's like that Route of the Path game. The names escape me. The tile laying game, like you can play like about 5 minutes.
Oh,
like Tron Light Cycles.
Yep. It is not Sulkin.
Do you want to just play a little?
Oh God.
Suro.
There you go. So I thought it was like Suro, and then saw the photograph which had the expanded board.
Oh God, that's interesting.
This looks like a cross between Suro and a heavy economic Euro.
Yep. This is the one that we think you might like, Andy.
You're quite right. Hello.
So, the refinement of oil has long been part of the government-controlled energy sector. Amassed with an incredibly complex and inefficient system of refineries, the government has felt the severe pressures of worldwide demand and the ever-increasing global standards for refinement. Unable to keep up with the demand, the government doing what it normally does, privatise it. This is where you come in. Seeking to capitalise on this new opportunity in pipeline, you start a company in the oil business. You will focus on building a much more efficient pipeline network in your refinery, hiring experts that provide valuable benefits over your competitors, and managing the logistics of purchasing and selling your refined oil in all the various markets. So, you need strong economic skills. Carefully crafting a network of pipelines just might ensure your victory. Yeah, hence it's a combination of worker placement to get the right bits and pieces to sell things at the right time, tile placement to link up the pipeline itself. I thought it sounded quite interesting. And again, maybe because it's got some element of geometric placement of things, it would be enough for me to get into worker placement in some fashion.
This sounds fantastic and exactly the sort of game I would really enjoy, and also coincidentally be f***ing awful at.
I'm going to admit, I'm surprised you've picked this job, because I'm looking at this board. I think this would melt your brain, Mr. K.
I think there's every chance it can.
I have to concur. I'm surprised you've gone for this.
But at the same time, I want to play this game.
Yes, I agree.
This looks like Power Grid mixed with Pipe Dream.
It does.
As you're trying to mix up these tiles which allow you to connect the oil to various points, but at the same time you've got all these little grids which control stock and workers and all sorts of crazy stuff. But it all looks beautiful at the same time.
It really does. I think I'm sporting a semi at the moment. This is fantastic.
This is not the effect I intended.
Oh, there goes the tone. Look at it go.
You can just about see it still in the distance through binoculars.
This does look awesome. So is this out as a standalone game, or is it going to be Kickstartering? Do we know?
I don't know. It looks like it's going to be in prototype at this year's Essen.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it's in production, because I think we would have seen more of it. Yeah, and a lot of the images kind of look computer.
They're all CGI
as well.
Yeah. The only actual physical picture that they've got of the actual game is a box with a shitload of baggies in it.
Seems quite appropriate, that.
Not that that's a bad thing, but yes, I suspect it is still in prototype, so we'll have to keep an eye out for that.
Yep.
See, now the Capstone Games have made this, also made a game called Arkwright, which apparently is a really, really good economic Euro, but sounds dull as dishwater, so I've never really quite got looked into it. Which is a game about cotton mills. Now,
they also did Ragusa, which...
We liked... Well, you liked Ragusa, didn't you?
I do like Ragusa. Oh, hello.
Indeed. Whoa. I think John might have struck gold here.
Resident News Ferret at your service.
It is a joint venture between Braincrack and Capstone Games.
We like Braincrack as well.
Yeah. Oh, they've done the coal mining games as well, which apparently are very popular. But again, to me, look dull as dishwater. But I could ignore that. I've got to admit, in reality, Brass looks dull as dishwater, but I really, really enjoyed that game.
Yes. And Power Grid looks really, really boring, and that's a belting game.
True. So, yes, I will be keeping an eye out for this because I think this might be very interesting.
Might even be a 3 for 3.
I'm not saying I'm necessarily going to buy it, but
No.
but it has piqued my interest. I need to see a bit more about it first.
I'll keep an eye on that one. Well done, Mr. Cage.
So, that's our 9 games. Yeah, I think there's a few honourable mentions which we should give a shout out for. We've already given a shout out to Reef.
Yep.
Yes.
Because I think we're all quite interested in that one, but I also think that's a game that most people are going to be either well aware of or will be well aware of once that launches because it's by the same people as Azul.
Yeah.
My Steve Tudor's pick for gimmicky game of the year of 2017 looks like it should be Planets.
Really?
So Planets is a tile placement game in which you're trying to make areas in a similar way to kind of King Domino.
Okay, yeah.
But instead of laying them out on the board, they're magnetic and you place them onto this basically like a D20. So it's a 12-sided shape and you're trying to make an actual planet.
12-sided shape that's like a D20.
D12, sorry.
Oh my.
Says the DM of a D&D game as well, just for added irony.
It's time to explain a few of those rolls, though.
Why do I never get more than a 12?
I'd say it's the other way around.
Yeah.
What do you mean? What do you mean that baddie did like 18 damage to me? I thought they only rolled a D12. No, it's fine. It's fine.
Nothing to
Yeah,
see
look,
here
here it
carry
is. You can see it yourself. Steve.
So the other game, which somebody else pointed out to me and nearly made my list, but I actually thought I'm not sure about the game itself, was a game called Tudor.
Yeah.
It's about Great Uncle Henry.
It is about Great Uncle Henry.
Excellent.
And Great Auntie Liz. What's interesting about this game is this is a worker placement game in which you get bonuses. So the bonuses can affect the actions you do later in the game. Okay? I know it's about like improving your station with various different parties and trying to get up to the royal court and things like that. But the bonuses are rings. And you can either put them on this cardboard hand that stands up in front of you, or you can put them on your own hand.
Oh, fantastic. Wow. They're almost like the Infinity Stones.
Yes.
Fantastic. It sounds a little bit like... oh, God, what's that Italian game we played? Was it last year?
Brides and Bribes.
Brides and Brides.
Yes.
Yes, it does even look a little bit like that.
There you go.
So, which is quite interesting. I kind of want to play this just because my name's on the front of it, basically. But I did watch a little playthrough of it and kind of thought it's not quite my kind of game to make it into that kind of last push in my top 3. But I still thought it looked interesting enough that I do want to try this.
Okay, interesting. Couple of honourable mentions from me. We mentioned this in our last podcast, so I won't spend too much time on it. Is the Everdell expansion called Pearlbrook. Everdell is a worker placement-ish game where you play as a number of woodland critters, and the board is in fact a tree, which is quite cool. So there's like multiple levels of cards you can put out. But Pearlbrook is the expansion. So you have a tree and a field in the main game, and then Pearlbrook adds the water bit, so you can be sort of underwater critters as well and get pearls and bits and bobs as well. So Everdell was a very, very popular worker placement game. So Pearlbrook has just finished its campaign actually on Kickstarter recently. So I think that's going to be demoed at Essen as well. Should be interesting. And also something that caught my eye, although the more I look at it, the less I'm impressed with it, other than the fact that it's massive, is a game called Magnastorm, which is a curiously weird title for the game. It's essentially you're, mining and taking resources on a planet, trying to put them down. It's quite hard to actually understand exactly what you do in the game, but it sounds like there's a similar mechanic to Scythe in the sense that when you take an action, you do a sort of top action and bottom action. Whereas the twist on this one is you haven't played Scythe yet, have you, John?
Nope.
No, okay. So when you select an action, you basically get a choice of 4, I think it is, actions. Inside, you select one, and there's kind of a one from the top and one from the bottom. So you do the top one, and you get the choice of doing the bottom one. You can do either or both. And the twist in Magnastorm is that you can essentially, you'll do one of these actions or something in the upper panel, as it were, and then that'll affect what you do in the lower panel. So you can kind of, if you time it right, it'll be very, very powerful, depending on what other people are doing. So the idea is that you are trying to sort of plunder natural resources and gain reputation points for fulfilling objectives, taking control of areas, commanders, transmitter stations, things like that. But apparently it is a big tactical board game with very little luck. So perfect for Essen, perfect Euro game, very colourful and very large.
Does actually look very pretty as well. You've got these like little
turtles.
Bases, like little turtle bases that are all over the place, and little diggers, are they?
I think they're probably mining facilities, but yes.
Mining facilities, yeah. It does look kind of interesting, this. It reminds me, as you said, it looks a little bit like a cross between Scythe and Eclipse.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, you've piqued my interest here, Mr. Lewis. You have, yet again.
I have done. I'm on fire tonight.
You both are, unfortunately. It's ruinous for my wallet. I was hoping I could discount a few of these games.
Oh, no.
The two of you are going to be ruinous on my wallet.
It's all part of the plan.
One game we didn't mention, which was on your list, but I noticed you, Andy, you've removed it now, actually, which was a bit of a callback to our Clans of Caledonia mentioned earlier. You did originally have on your list Newton.
I did, yes. Well, I've taken it off, having reconsidered my position. Whilst it still sounds interesting to me because of my, I think, incorrect and undeserved reputation for liking boring, dry games.
The shoe fits.
It's not the only thing that fits. The hat, the gloves, the coat. But I have heard from people who have played or seen demos and things like that it is quite faffy. And whilst I don't mind, I mean, I like complicated games, faffy games can start to get a bit annoying.
Now, I looked at this when I saw it on your list before you'd removed it and got down to your 3, and I thought this looked duller than Tim Henman describing his favourite shade of beige.
Why Tim Henman?
Because Tim Henman's really dull.
Or Nigel Mansell discussing his favourite carpet samples, you know.
It looked like this very perfect example of here's a load of mechanics, and we've just slapped some scientific paraphernalia on top of it and gone, yes, it's all about Newton. Yeah, of course it is.
Obviously. Yeah. Yeah. It was a kind of a first stab, but no, having investigated a little further, it was all sparkle, and it just didn't quite have that buy me Andy grab that some of the others do. But unfortunately, wasn't there.
We're gonna have people say you're wrong because this is gonna be ridiculously popular with the Eurogame crowd.
Of course it is.
But I don't think this is a game that's for us 3.
No, I think you're probably right. I think it might be another Clans popular, and then but just not quite for us.
That was our top picks for Essen 2018. If you are at Essen, we will not be there, unfortunately, but if you are and you demo one of these games and it was because of us, then tell the publishers that Polyhedra and Collider sent you.
Yep.
I'm sure they'll be pleased to hear that.
Yep, definitely. And if they want to send us some games to review, we're okay with that as well.
Of course.
They will be ecstatic because of our infamous reputation.
Yep.
Okay.
Polly who?
Let's go with that, shall we?
You can mention that if they play their cards right, haha. No? I thought that was quite a good one. Then they too could earn themselves the prestigious, I can't even say the word, prestigious honour of being a PHC 3 for 3. You know,
indeed,
if their game's good enough.
Yes. Don't just make a token effort, though.
Oh, no. I'm bored. Let's finish.
Bored. Oh, God, yeah. Have you got anything else you want to insert there?
Okay, these are getting bad now. Steve, finish the show.
We should move on.
I don't know. I think we should just carry on these forever and just gently fade out the mic.
Come on, Steve. Let's get to the end game.
Well, it's time to rack up the final scores then. Thank you very, very much for listening. We have been Polyhedron Collider. If you'd like to leave us a review on your podcasting system of choice, we'd much appreciate it. And if you'd like to share us with your friends, we'd also much appreciate it, though they might not be your friends for much longer.
but they might be our friends.
Yes. You can chat to us on Twitter. We are at PolyhedronC, but individually I am at Wahofflemadenga.
I am at Sonic H with a 0.
And I'm at John_Cage.
We are also available on Facebook. We're on the Board Game Geek Guild, which is Guild 2726. Apparently G Plus is closing soon, so you won't be able to contact us on there anymore.
Has anyone ever tried?
No. So it doesn't matter. We are regularly broadcasting our Dungeons & Dragons games. We're on twitch.tv/Polyhedron Collider, and we will also be uploading them to youtube.com/user/Polyhedron Collider.
Yep. So this week coming up will be the Masters of Fate once again, unless someone tells me differently. And the same will be true the following week.
Yep.
And then who knows, in about 3 weeks' time, I might get to play D&D again. I'm getting the shakes now because Andy's cancelled my Monday night game, and I haven't had a D&D game now for a week, and it's going to be 2 more weeks. I'm okay. I'm going to be okay.
Daddy needs his sugar. I haven't cancelled our game. I've just postponed it.
We're not
Moving
playing
house, it seems, is annoying.
Anyway, hopefully John will be in a copious mental state next time and not suffered from proper D&D withdrawal symptoms. Until next time, batty bye.
Ta-ra!
Catch you later.